So in today's episode, I want you to stick around for the episode. It's about to start in 2 minutes. But what we're going to talk about, Lorenzo is going to talk about how to use tools that will allow you to track hidden assets. There's a lot of like stuff that's on a page and people don't notice it. And he's going to talk about tools and the methods you can use to track that. What I'm going to talk about is I've never seen this in the open, so hopefully it's an innovative idea, but a way to get more people to actually scroll through your product images at the top of the page, and it's a clever copywriting technique. So stick around, show starts now. And we are going to talk about a brand that I'd never heard of, but Lorenzo knows them quite well or knows of them. I think they're European.
German
Called Foodspring. And we've decided to focus in on their whey protein product page, which, as you can see over here, has a lot of customer reviews. And so obviously this improving this page by 10% would mean meaningful increase for the business. Let's just talk about the layout of the page. They have lots of images, show the product, show the lifestyle, show the flavors. They are also promoting their free shaker over here. And then they have these flavors. They have these 4 flavors. And in terms of quantity, you can increase your quantity. It's in stock, how many grams you're getting. I think a missed opportunity here, at least I found, was that it doesn't tell me how many days supply this is. And there are some ideas here that we will go ahead, Lorenzo.
No. Go ahead. Finish up.
This is their price point. They're talking about it's 39. I don't know what this even means. 40 pounds for 1 kg, I guess they're saying. So I don't know if that's a good, I don't know what this means actually.
And it's interesting because now what happens is that people are like, oh, how much is 750, right?
Yeah.
So they have to make that calculation.
Yeah. Then they have their elevator pitch over here. So then we get into the description. It says only the best, perfect for post-workout. So clearly it's a post-workout solution. And then they kind of talk about their sales pitch over here. Have ingredients. They have recommended use. They actually have some pretty good content here also because they're kind of showing how it's soluble versus the clumpy powder, which I love. I love these kind of images. And then they have the reviews. So we're not going to obviously talk about all of this right now, just giving you a walkthrough of the page. Then they also have a slider here as well that talks about the nutrition at its best. Then they have a really good video here. And I think it nicely demonstrates the cows that are out in the pasture. There's also a nice sales pitch here. So I would actually focus on getting more people to watch the video. And then below that, they have some sales copy here. And then here they're talking about why the protein that they're getting from cows from New Zealand is special. There's some explanation here. There's an arrow so you can kind of see how New Zealand cows are producing.
How did you like that visual when you first saw it? Because I know you're a big fan of like.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. Yeah. And then you can continue scrolling. You can see happy cows, and then you can see our farmers. So it kind of like goes through that whole cycle. And then over here they're talking about the flavors. Then they talk about objection busting. So what is whey protein? Some people might not know how to use it, blah, 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 blah. And then they have their cross sells and upsells. So that's the layout of the page. And we're going to now talk about our ideas. And I think, Lorenzo, you're going to take over the screen right now and maybe share your idea first.
I want to talk about the first. It's actually not a conversion idea. It's more about here's what I would do if tomorrow I was hired by Foodspring and I had to improve their conversion rate. So the first thing I would do is I would actually set up conversion research tools in order to understand the potential impact of hidden elements. Now, what I notice is when I talk about hidden elements, one thing that I notice is that they have a lot of content on this page, and a lot of the stuff that they have is completely hidden. When I talk about hidden, means that they require a specific action from the user in order to actually uncover that content. So here I put few examples of things that they're hiding. So let's go through them really quick. So the flavors are in the drop down. So what happens is somehow, because I'm on desktop, this is what the drop down looks like. But it's, you know, on mobile, it looks good. So now they have like 4 different flavors, but because they're in the drop down, unless the user clicks on that drop down, they wouldn't see what all the different flavors are. Then we have the benefits are hidden in the slider. So let's scroll down. These are the benefits that I'm talking about. Again, you know, you have to scroll through the slider in order to unveil them all. And there's a lot of good stuff here, like, you know, a bunch of, like, especially this one, the fact that the protein comes from the grass-fed milk. So unless the user scrolls through to the slider, they don't see it. Another thing that they have here is the tabs approach, where they have, again, the description of the product, the ingredients, which, you know, for a product like this one, that people have to, like, you know, drink, they're super important. Again, content that is all, like, even in this section, recommended use, is all content that is like hidden behind a tab. And then other things here, if we scroll down into here, the nutrition at its best is hidden. So a lot of stuff, again, that is hidden. So what I would do is I put here the kind of like activities that I would do if I were to start working with these guys. The first thing I would do is I would set up Google Analytics events. And I want to briefly talk about what they are and why they're valuable. So Google Analytics events are basically a way to understand where people are clicking throughout the content. So every time a user makes an action, for example, in the hidden content here, I don't know, if they click on the slider, or if they click on the ingredients, or in their recommended use, or in the reviews, we're actually tracking that. And the reason why we want to do that is because we want to understand with data where people are clicking and how many people are actually clicking on all these hidden assets. The second activity I would be doing is actually setting up heat maps and click maps. Heat maps tell me how much people are scrolling down the content, especially on mobile, super critical. Because oftentimes you see that there's a lot of people that don't scroll towards, you know, the middle section of the page, or even more towards the end of the page. And in those sections, oftentimes there's very valuable content that is important in the decision-making process of the user in order to buy. So understanding how much people are scrolling with a heat map is critical. The second thing is click maps, which is basically tells you where people are clicking. It's just another data point. You know, Google Analytics events already tell you where people are clicking, but it's good to have another kind of like source of data to tell us that. Because it's very visual. You can see straight away where people are clicking. The last data point that I would look at is actually the customer support tickets. What I would do is I would look at the most common questions that people are reaching out to customer support for. And the reason why I would look at those questions is because super oftentimes people are reaching out to customer support to ask questions about something that is actually on the website, but that information is hidden in, you know, a tab or in a drop down or in the sliders, or because there's a lot of content on the website, people don't see it, or maybe it's towards the end of the page, again, people don't see it. So I would want to set up these different data points. Here I put the example. A lot of people are asking about element X, but it's on the website already, but simply people don't see it. So so that's the kind of like setup that I would do. I want to talk a little bit about like the, you know, how much time it takes and what it takes to set up all these different tools. So the Google Analytics events, they can be set up with Google Tag Manager. Sure, they will require, Google Tag Manager skills. If you don't have them, hopefully you're working with like some developers or analytics team that can help you with that. I actually would argue that if you watch a bunch of like videos on YouTube on how to do it, it's actually super straightforward. You don't need to have coding skills in order to do it yourself. The heat maps and the click maps are super simple to set up in Hotjar. They probably require, for a page like this, probably requires, actually, there's a feature in Hotjar now that automatically creates the heat maps for you. So all you have to do is literally go into the set up the snippet on your website for Hotjar, and then go in Hotjar in the heat map section and just type in the URL of the page that you want, and you're done. Finally, the customer support tickets analysis obviously require a little bit more time. If your customer support team does a good job at attacking different topics and different reasons why people are reaching out to you, that's even easier, and that's even like faster. So I put like 1 or 2 days, but even like 1 or 2 days, if you're like super detail oriented and you go like, you start deciding to code all the different results yourself, you can simply just, skim through like all the different questions that people are asking. So based on that, so that's the first step I would do. And then based on that, I would try to understand which ones are the hidden assets that people are actually not looking at. And with testing, I would actually test, okay, I wonder how I could actually structure the page to understand which one of the assets are actually the most important ones.
I really, just to give some more context here, I actually really like this idea, because I also studied this page and I came to the same kind of problem, which is that there's a lot of content based on the structure of the page that has been positioned at multiple locations that most people wouldn't get to. Because we know that even on a page, if you look at the heat map, you'll notice it turns deep blue by the time you get to 1/3 down the page even. So if people are not even going to the bottom of the main page, the probability of them going to those alternate contents that are hidden in tabs is very low. So what's really interesting about Lorenzo's idea is that he's saying, listen, if we know that we have such limited time to affect the purchase intent of the buyer, let's prioritize to understand what content they're seeking out, what content they're consuming, and then what content they're actually talking to us about as being important. And then let's reframe the content. So that's a really good idea, Lorenzo. I really like it.
And the interesting thing is that these tests that I have kind of like explained, this test is done for learning. So when we analyze how hidden all these different assets are, we want to actually test not just the order of showcasing the different assets, but also testing removing, right, one of these assets from the page completely, to see what the impact on a bunch of metrics is, such as like add to cart or conversion rate. And again, this is a pure learning testing where we're not trying to impact the conversion rate, but we want to understand which ones of maybe more of these different assets that I kind of like explained here in these bullet points have the highest impact in the decision-making process of the user. So then we can learn. And then from that learning, we can then start enhancing, one or more assets that, again, we have verified in a scientific way that are important to the user.
Wonderful.
You want to talk about yours?
Sure. Then you'll have to remind me to come back to yours.
Actually, no. Let's talk about my second idea, and then we go to yours. My second idea, I called it enhance the flavor and the easy to mix attributes with more appealing images. So as always, Rishi, you know this. Before working on this project, I went into the reviews that these guys have, and I eyeballed every single review that they have. Actually, not every single one, but maybe like 50 or 60. And I wanted to understand what customers had to say about the product and their experience after they bought it. And I want to show you the spreadsheet that I put together that basically displays different categories of insights that I gathered from it. In this tab, I call it benefits. You basically see the list of all the benefits that people have mentioned they got from the product. And I want to point the attention on two themes that people have mentioned. The first one is, oh, this protein shake has an amazing flavor. The second one is it has a good texture, right? So now, obviously, flavor and texture are two important product attributes that people have mentioned, especially considering, another insights that I actually found is that people have switched from other products. And what I mean by that is that it wasn't really the first time that they were trying a wheat product ever, but I've tried other products in the past. And a common problem that other products that I've tried in the past was it was not very good taste. It didn't have a good taste. It didn't have a good flavor. So now they said, finally, I found a protein that has a good flavor. So what I would do is, I would actually enhance few things around the product images. So if we go back to the product images here on the top, one thing that I noticed is that they have different flavors here. But what's interesting is that if you scroll through the slider, they just show like vanilla and then like all the different flavors that they have in the same product slider. So if you like select like chocolate, it just shows you the chocolate at the beginning, but the next photo is again vanilla. So what I would do is I would create like consistency. Every time you select a different flavor, all the different images should be about that flavor. And not just that, but also like what I would do is I would actually show images of people that are actually consuming the product and they're actually enjoying the product. They do have some images here. There's a human being here, like a person, but it's not really showing that it's consuming the product. There's another person here. You can't really tell if the person is liking the product or not. Her eyes are closed. And then there's another image, I believe, of, she's just like showing the shake. So, I want to communicate with the photo of a person that she or he are enjoying, the protein shake. The other thing, going back to what we saw from the reviews mining around the texture, I would want to show how people are actually mixing the product. If we go back to the reviews mining, there is a section which I called consumption. And what I gather in this section is basically how people mix the protein with. And as you can see, there's a bunch of different products that they consume the protein shake with, the powder with. So they mentioned like cow's milk. They didn't talk about water. Some people talk about even like porridge, right? So I would want to have some images around that, like pouring protein powder and pouring milk to showcase that. And then finally, the other point I had here when we go back to the benefits section, you know, some people mention, oh, we really like the fact that the way that they use comes from grass-fed cows, right? And as Rishi mentioned earlier, there's a section that talks about how it comes from like New Zealand and so on. So I would want to showcase more images around that topic, just because the images in this section, obviously on the product page, occupies a very important, part of the real estate of the website. So I want to make sure that more people would say it.
So the flavor part is so important, because one of the fundamental downsides with buying online is if I were to buy a protein shake in a retail store, I drive home, I make it the next day, and I'm instantly able to enjoy it. But online, there is this 5-day gap between me making the purchase and me tasting it. So as a copywriter, I want to give the person a taste, at least through words, of what they'll experience. And there is no mention of that through words and through images. I'm sorry. And so there is not enough that has been done there. And I think, as Lorenzo pointed out, I think it's a really good conversion opportunity.
Yeah, because obviously flavor matters, right? It's something that you're gonna have to drink. So
I would argue it probably matters more than any other attribute, right? So yeah, I totally agree. So let me go ahead and share my screen now. I'm going to talk about my concepts. Can you see my screen, Lorenzo?
Yep.
All right. So basically, my hypothesis is that when you draw a graph of attention, you'll notice that as the user is coming down on the page, their attention starts depleting. Now, I'm looking for a spot of, it's almost like building a house. I'm trying to find available real estate for me to present my sales pitch. I can't work here because it's kind of already been used. This has been used here. I could update some of the copy here, but the problem is that this functionality is already built in. So really, the only space that I have, as far as like free space for me to write copy, this is the first opportunity I have. So to me, this is the opening of the sales pitch. And the way they've chosen to talk about their sales pitch, it says only the best, perfect post-workout. When you exercise hard and you demand a lot from your body, it's only fair to give the absolute best in return. Our whey protein contains perfect formula for your muscles. What is perfect? Perfectly creamy when mixed with water, milk, blah, 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 blah. Ideal for strength, endurance, blah, blah, blah. My point is that this is not a bad sales pitch. It's
pretty good.
Yes. But I wanted to kind of, knowing that this is the most important real estate that I have, I wanted to say, okay, how do I kind of address some of the doubts that the buyer would have? How do I kind of make my product stand out? Because remember, when a user comes to this page, they are in their mind, if they're coming through a paid ad, they have multiple tabs open. So they probably have competing tabs open. Even if they're not coming through a paid ad, they know that there are many protein alternatives out there. So I'm in a very promiscuous state. And so you need to first convince me that I need to give you, pay attention to what you have to say. Otherwise, it's meaningless. So what I did was, in my concept, I kind of rewrote the opening. I wrote the whole thing, and it says, this was really damn hard. So there's a couple of things to talk about over here. So the first thing is that what was hard? So the user has no choice. If they want to really figure it out, they have to actually read this copy. But this damn hard is a very intentional word choice. And it's really important for us to really think about the nature of the product. This is a workout product. Working out is hard, and working out is almost like a little bit of a masculine sport, even though women, of course, work out as much, but it's still like, you're fighting something. So I wanted to use word that would be, that would work, that would make sense to people that are working out. So that's why I use the word damn hard. That's a headline. Then it says, there is a lot of whey protein options online. Actually, you should say there are a lot of whey protein options online. So what I'm doing here is I'm addressing upfront that there are many alternatives available. And then it says, last when I checked, there were 131 brands. So again, I'm magnifying and quantifying that. But the thing to pay attention to over here is the way I've used the word I. It says last when I checked, because I want the reader to feel like they're literally having a conversation with an individual versus a corporation. And of course, this 131 brands kind of makes them realize like there are a lot of options.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go through 131 options. Then notice what I say after this. It says many of these proteins are delightfully inexpensive. So this is very intentional word choice, because one of the things that I figured out about these guys is that they are in the premium space, the premium end of the market. I don't know if they're the most expensive, but I'm pretty sure there are cheaper alternatives out there. And I want to make sure that people recognize that we are expensive for a reason. So I could have said that options available online are cheap and shit. The problem with that is that it's fully loaded, right? In the sense that, I mean, the user knows that I'm biased. So when you say that the options are bad, they will kind of rebel against you. So the way I framed it,
they smell it, right?
They smell it, right? So many of these proteins are delightfully inexpensive. I'm actually using a positive term to describe something which later on I'll prove to be, which I will kind of go after. But anyway, this is the intentional choice. Okay. Then it says our whey protein uses milk from plant-fed cows living in wide fields. So I want to now immediately get into what makes our protein special. Not only, and then I talk about the benefit of this, not only is grazing technique good for well-being of the cow, it impacts the quality of milk compared to milk from cows kept in stables. Now I'm contrasting us against other milk sources. Milk from grass-fed cows contain more blah, 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 some acids. So here I'm only giving the reader, remember, this is the opening of my sales pitch. I'm giving the reader just enough so they actually have an incentive to want to continue reading and seeing what this is all about. And then over here, I put this strategic line over here. Are you new to whey protein? And there are two options. And the reason I'm doing this is because, so this sales pitch should make sense to even people who are new, but even people who have done it before. So I didn't want to show this up front. I wanted to show it here. But the reason I want to show this question is because my sales pitch is fundamentally different if someone says, I've never tried whey protein before, versus someone who says, I have been using a competing brand and I've been working out for many years. And so it's really important for me to capture this, because based on the response, I'm going to update the copy in the rest of the page. So that's my first concept.
And I'm a sucker for the last sentence that you're using, right?
Right.
Because myself, being a geek and a nerd when it comes to like research and data, what you're doing with your last sentence, you're actually collecting data. And you're doing research, Rishi. Unbelievable. You're doing research. Oh my God. Let's wait and realize this.
True.
So I freaking love the last sentence right there. I've never seen anybody doing it. I am going to steal that idea and try it for my clients.
Well, I hope the listeners steal it as well. We'd like to see more examples.
Please steal.
Please steal. Also subscribe to the channel and write comments. So tell us what you like. Lorenzo shared 2 ideas. I've shared an idea. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. If you want us to explain something in more detail, let us know about that as well. So that's my first idea. I'm going to now immediately jump to my second idea. So something Lorenzo mentioned in his when he was analyzing the page, I came across that same insight, which is that there's a lot of content over here, and Lorenzo has the right idea of doing research to identify what the consumption pattern, not research, but to do research using Google Tag Manager to identify the consumption pattern of that content, but to also look at the chat logs to see what types of questions are coming up regularly.
Yeah.
And so he wants to reprioritize the content based on that. I take a very different approach to these things. So we notice the same problem. But my whole thinking is that not all content is equally important. And so I want to place a bet on a specific piece of content. So I spent 45 minutes studying this page. And at first I was of the opinion that all of this is important. I don't know what to focus on. I don't know what's the most important. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because you guys need to have the strength of conviction to be able to pick one thing. If I ask someone to kind of what's important, and they came back with a list of 10 things, all 10 things couldn't possibly be equally important. I think I'm not saying that this approach that I'm going to propose to you is the right one, but I think it allows us to get to the finish line faster. If you just pick one thing and you focus on that, and now I have data that says I was totally wrong or I was totally right. And so what I've done is this. So here's my thinking. What I did was I'm going to show you, if you go through the page, if you go through the page, you'll realize I've not ranked, but I've listed all of the details that the management team would probably tell you are important. They would say reviews are important. Yes. How do you disagree? They would say the images are important. They would say showing these attributes, this elevator pitch is important. Yes, I agree there too. They would say, of course, this is important. Yes, this is important. They would say these nutrition elements are important. They would say this video is important. They would say this New Zealand milk thing is important. They would say showing the flavors is important. They would show the FAQs are important. Ingredients are important. Recommended use is important. So I wanted to pick one thing to focus on. Now, the challenge here is on a political basis, if I were to delete some of these things, the client will destroy me. So my strategy is to actually don't remove anything, but increase the emphasis on the thing that I want to draw attention to, right? And so what I concluded was, I could be totally wrong about this. What I concluded was that this block of content over here, where we talk about the fact that we have milk we get whey from milk from cows from New Zealand, I believe, after having read the entire page, is our most valuable strategic asset. Now, the consumer may not consider this to be most important, but it is actually the thing that makes our brand special, is the fact that we are the brand that actually has these this from New Zealand. Now, I'm going to bet the whole farm on this one idea. Now, I could be wrong, and this is why testing.
The whole farm.
Yeah, the whole farm. That's right.
Do you have a farm in New Zealand as well?
I wanted to use an analogy that would make sense with the kind of product we're working on. So very good. What I've done over here is I'm basically saying that block is the thing that I want to focus on. Now, I'll tell you about something beautiful that happens as a CRO. Once you identify a block, then it opens your mind up to lots of ideas. So what are the things we could do there? Well, one thing we could do is we could do Lorenzo's favorite idea. We could add tracking. So what that means is that we can track how many people are clicking on all 5 slides of this. And I'm now now that I've identified this block, I'm going to focus on like, how do I make this block convert really well? What else can I do? I can update the design. So if you look at the design of this, I actually don't love the design because they have this headline, they have this lots of white space over here. If I'm over here, I actually don't even know I can scroll. First of all, is the scrolling design even good? Should the scrolling maybe over here, I could have had a button that says, whatever this headline is, let's say, see how much lower the emissions are, right? What if there was a button over here that said, see how much lower the emissions are? When you click on it, it loads the next slider. Would that be a better design? I'm not saying it is, but these are things that I would start focusing on once I identify this is the block that I want to focus on. So what else can I do? We can measure the conversion impact of that section. So I can, again, in analytics, I can track, okay, of the people that saw this, what percentage converted? The other thing that I can do, and this is actually a really important one, is that I can, at the bottom on page 3, for example, let's say over here, I can actually add a question that says, did this content increase the likelihood of you buying? I'm literally asking the buyer, are you more likely to buy now that you've read 2 other pages? And if 40% of people said no, then I know that people don't care about this content. Once I've kind of really designed this block really well, I can now start nudging more people towards this block. And then the final thing I can do is I can actually change the entire page design, because one of the inherent, let's say that we discovered that this truly, I'm placing the bet that this is the most important block. I could be totally wrong. The testing tool will tell me. But if I conclude that this is the most important block, now I can redesign the damn page and actually have this content show up higher on the page. So just look at the number of choices we have within that block. So sometimes CROs feel limited, like Rishi, I could have worked at the whole page. You're asking me to just focus on this thing. But what you realize is that when you start zeroing in your attention on one section, within that section itself, you discover lots and lots of different insights. Yeah, so that's my insight here. And I have
I wonder how many people say no to that question that you ask and then still convert.
Sure.
I think it could be interesting to understand if there's a bunch of like people that say no, yeah. Did the content? No. Okay, fantastic. And then I want to see how many people say something and then do the opposite.
Yeah, absolutely. And these are all the things that but absolutely right. So my basic lesson here is I am convinced that this is the most important content. Therefore, I want to optimize the heck out of this content. And that which I didn't even include was rewriting this copy as well. So that's the thing. Now, the last thing I want to share real quick actually is one of the elements I talked about over here was that we can nudge more people to actually see this content. See, once you've optimized, let's say, I work on this and I can actually show a 12% improvement by reworking this content. Okay, now what I need to do is I need to get more people to notice this content. One approach is to redesign the page and take this higher on the page. And that's fine. The problem is that when you do a redesign, it's still political. So what I want to do is I want to come up with a subtle nudge to get people to actually notice this content. So one area which we've talked about in previous episodes is a big hotspot are the product images. People are 100% going to pay the most amount of attention to this part of real estate. So my idea is, I wasn't able to mock this up, but I'll explain the concept. So my idea is that if I can convert this block of content or images into a sales pitch to draw people's attention to that content, then that would be quite effective. So what I did was the copy is going to say the first slide. So this slide over here, it's going to have this text written in a curvy way. And it's going to say, today we are GOI, and it's cut off at GOI. And so the user has like, what the hell is this guy saying? And then you click on this, and over here, the text will continue. It says going to show why way. So this slide is going to say going to show why way. And then when you click on the third slide, it's going to say protein milk from over here. And when you click on fourth slide, it's going to say New Zealand is different. And it's a simple idea. It might be a bad idea. Actually, I have no evidence if this is going to work. But the idea here is what I've done is I've converted this high visibility area to a place where I can tell people, show a headline that is going to incentivize them to want to understand what the hell makes New Zealand milk special, which I'm driving more attention to that section.
I just made up a new nickname for you, Rishi.
Oh, okay.
The teaser.
Yes.
Because what you're doing right there is teasing the user big time. And it's going to be interesting. Actually, I would love to see this test in action, because I would love to see how many people, this is like almost like something that I've never seen anybody doing. And, I think this is almost like a novelty effect in the eyes of the user, because it's something that I've never seen either. Especially like on a brand and then like a gym brand and so on. So I wonder how that idea, I'm sure it's going to help going through those carousel of images on the top. But I also wonder how much that novelty effect and like kind of like a weird effect impacts users' decision making.
Yeah, I mean, this is why we test. We don't have any evidence if it's going to work for this specific brand. And there's so many. And if we were to test this, we won't be, the version I'm showing you is the workshop version, right? If I'm actually working with a client, we will test much more sophisticated versions. But anyway, that is.
But I just want to make sure that people understand what you're doing here. Rishi is motivating people to scroll through the images, right, with a picture story pitch, which is something that totally makes sense because, hey, you're making people scroll through the images, which is a behavior that we always would love users to do, right? Because, you know, based on my experience and your experience, people that scroll through the images, they're more engaged and they're more likely to convert. But he also is making sure that the attention of the user is focused on that message, which, you know, we all know that people's attention is competing, you know, because there's a lot of different elements on the page.
Yeah, and I think the way to kind of think about this is that the first thing you want to do, so it's a 3-step process. Step number 1, as Lorenzo mentioned, is that there are lots of competing messages on the page. The reviews are there, the images are there, all of these things. It's really, really important for you to know which of these content pieces has the biggest impact on purchase intent. And you can figure it out using Lorenzo's method of click tracking. It doesn't matter how you figure it out. But once you identify what converts the best, you need to then make sure that it's converting, like it's as strong as it can be. So you need to double the conversion rate of that element. Then what you need to do is you need to make sure that almost everyone sees it. So those, it's just 3 variables: identify what moves the needle, move the needle, and make more people see that element. And so what I'm proposing, by the way, is just one version of it. This could actually be a really shit idea. And I want you guys to maybe think of like, oh, hey, if I was working on it, Rishi, I'm going to take ideas 10x forward, which is what we want. But yeah, that is that's our show. And I hope, Lorenzo, is there anything we didn't cover?
No, just make sure to subscribe and hit the like button as well if you appreciated the ideas that we shared today. If you have any other idea on how to improve this product page for Foodspring, just write it in the comments and we'll respond super quickly usually. So
absolutely. Have a good day, guys. See you guys soon.
Thank you, guys. Ciao.
Ciao.